Hey guys, welcome to the course. I am so excited that you're here. You've just taken the next step in becoming a better digital artist, and that says a lot about your dedication to what you do. Now, if you're wanting to become better at digital painting, this course is definitely going to be the course to help you. It's going to cover everything from the very basics, like how to use certain tools and different techniques, all the way to painting different textures and surfaces, and even different painting techniques itself. It's not just going to come easy though. It takes practice. It's going to take a lot of work and dedication, okay? There's lots of assignments in this course, and as I do the demos, you should follow along on your own so that you can learn the techniques and become better as an artist. Now, I really recommend that you use a Facebook group. It's a really great resource where you can get feedback from other students, as well as myself, as well as use a Q&A. Now, it's a long course, and it might be difficult to stick with it, but I really encourage you to do so, and I promise that if you do the assignments and you stick with the course and make it all the way to the end, that you will be blown away with your improvement as a digital artist. So, that being said, I can't wait to get started. Hey guys, how's it going? So, in this lecture, we're going to talk about what tools you'll need in order to complete this course. Now, it is possible to complete this course with a mouse. In the class requirements, it says that you need a stylus and a tablet. And it is possible, and I know there's going to be people who will say that to me, you can do this with a mouse, and you can, but it's going to be really hard to do some of the things we're going to do. And especially if you're a beginner, I really don't recommend it. You're going to end up getting really frustrated and stressed out, and it's going to make you not want to complete the course. So what I recommend is having some sort of a stylus and a tablet. What I'm going to be using is an Apple Pencil with the iPad Pro. Okay, I have the first generation iPad Pro with, I believe it's the 12.9 inch, and the reason that I go with this one is because the smaller one has less gigs, and because of that, you can have less layers. So I go with the bigger one. It gives you more layers, more options, right? That's what I prefer. Also, you just have more drawing space. I would also recommend Procreate if using the iPad Pro. I think it's the best option out there, and we'll talk more about what software you can use later, but that's my personal preference, and that's what I'll be using in the course. You can also, however, use something else like a bamboo tablet from Wacom or a Cintiq, right? There's tons of other options out there, and there's no wrong or right one to use. You just want something that will allow you to draw onto the surface like you would with a piece of paper. That's going to help you get a lot more accurate lines and a lot better strokes, okay? When you're going for a stylus, what you're looking for is something with pressure sensitivity, okay? There's a lot of styluses out there that you can buy that work with phones and iPads and stuff like that, but if they don't have pressure sensitivity, they're not going to help you get the look and feel that you're going for in your drawings and your paintings, okay? What pressure sensitivity means is that the harder you press down, the thicker and darker the line will get, and the lighter you press down, the thinner and more transparent the line will get, okay? That's what we're looking for. If you just use a normal stylus, what's going to happen is that you're just going to have one steady line weight all the way across, and you're not going to have as much control over it. Okay, so the older iPads, if you're not using an iPad Pro and you try and use Apple Pencil on it, it's not going to work. And even if you just get a regular old stylus to try and use on an older iPad, that also won't work very well because it's not going to have, like we talked about, that pressure sensitivity. So once again though, you don't have to use an iPad. You can use a Cintiq, you can use a bamboo tablet, you can use whatever you find out there. Just make sure you have that pressure sensitivity. And like I said, if you really want, to give yourself some punishment and you really want to do something hard, you can use a mouse, but it's going to be really hard, and it's really something for people who are much more practiced. I can't even do it with a mouse, so I would just say stay away from that. If you don't have these tools, maybe come back to this course later when you do, or look into buying some. So that's it for this lecture, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey guys, so in this lecture, I'm going to be showing you that anyone can learn to paint, okay? It's not something you're born with, it's not something that you have to have a special magical gift for, it's something that you can learn just like any other skill, okay? So, we're going to be painting this image, okay? You and I, we're going to paint this together, this is what it's going to look like when we're finished. By the time you're done, I hope that you realize that it's something that you're capable of doing and that you can learn to paint regardless of how good you are at art to begin with. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that. This is what we're going to be starting with. You can download the file, okay? And it's just going to be the line art here, the shape of the creature that we have outlined, and then our color palette. Okay, so you can just color pick from these colors. All right, so to start out, make sure that these are arranged in this order. You don't want to move them around. That will mess some things up for you, okay? So, and for this image, we're just going to delete it for now because we don't need it. I just want to show you what it was going to look like when we finished, okay? So here's what we're starting with. First thing you're going to do is you're going to select the shape layer, which is this one on the bottom, okay? Going to hit select, and this is going to make it so that we don't do anything that gets painted outside of these lines, okay? Now, if you're in Photoshop, you can select it by hitting Command A, which will be select all, all right? Or if you're in Procreate, you can just select it. So now what we're going to do, we're going to color pick this color here. It's the green one. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and click on the top right corner to fill this in. If you're in Photoshop, you can use the paint bucket tool, but we're just going to fill in the whole shape. And you can see now that our gray layer is now green. Okay. This is going to be our color layer where we put in our basic colors. Okay. So this whole time I'm going to be using one brush, and it's going to be the round brush in Procreate, completely unmodified. There's nothing special about it, just the regular old round brush, which is also a brush option in Photoshop. You just want to make sure that you have pressure sensitivity enabled for opacity, okay? So, round brush. For his belly, we're going to paint his underbelly, this color right next to the green. It's like a more blue, teal, green color, and this is what we're going to paint for his belly and his underside. So, since we have it selected, I could just come over here and paint this in. It'll be a little bit on his jaw, and you can see the lighter I press, it gets a little bit more transparent, and it blends a little bit more with the green. Okay, so make sure you want to blend the edge just a little bit so that it doesn't feel so quite so awkward of a of edge there, okay? So we're going to do this on his underbelly all the way around, and just follow along exactly how I'm doing it, okay? If you're feeling really confident, you can go ahead and pick your own colors, but if you just want to follow along step by step, for this first one, that's totally fine. That's what those colors are there for. So under his belly, under his arm here a little bit, over here on this side, under his fingers. Okay. And we're still all on that same layer, that same color layer. Okay, we don't need to move to a new one yet. Okay. Now we can do his tail here. Once again, I'm trying to blend it slightly so it's not as harsh. Okay. There we go. And then the back side of his leg a little bit as well. Okay. And then just slightly on the bottom of his feet, we'll put some in. His toes as well. You can see I'm always trying to make sure there's not any of these really crisp lines. I want it to be a little bit of a gradient all the way through. Make sure it blends, okay? So there we go. That's pretty good. All right, next, let's do this yellow color here, the one all the way to the left, and we're gonna paint in these fins on his head yellow. Make sure you keep things selected, that way you're not going outside the lines. We don't have to worry about being careful or anything like that. And then when it meets this flap here on his head, I'm going to be sure to kind of blend that. Okay, and then this flap as well needs to be painted. Perfect. All right, next. So this blue here, this is going to be the color I use for his eye. Check. This pinkish purple color is going to be the inside of his mouth. So I'm going to come in here, make sure my brush is small enough to get in these cracks. We're just going to paint in his whole mouth as well as his tongue. If you don't know how to color pick in Photoshop, you can do Command I, which will bring up the eyedropper tool, or just click on the eyedropper tool. Or in Procreate, you can hold down on a color with your finger or your stylus, and it will select that color as well. The download file is a Photoshop document because Udemy does not allow Procreate files. However, you can still download that in Procreate. You can download the Photoshop document if you have the latest update of Procreate, which is Procreate 4, and it will still have its layers accessible. Okay. So then the next one is going to be this really light blue color up here. I'm going to select that one. This is going to be the little tip of his little lure. Then we're going to go with this dark gray color. This is going to be the color for the body of the bug that he's eating, and then this light gray for the wings. Okay. Awesome. So we have that. Color layer is already done. We're going to make a new layer. We're going to keep our current layer selected. Okay. And we're going to set this one to multiply. Okay, so we still have this outline here. You can see those striped lines behind still. We still want that selected. And then our new layer is going to be set to multiply. And we're going to come over here and select this light blue color. Okay, now multiply is going to darken that color while keeping it transparent. And later in the course, there'll be an entire lecture about every single layer mode that there is and what they do. So for now, we're not going to focus on that. We're just going to use it. And then later, I'll explain how it works. But for now, just set that layer to multiply. It's going to be our shadow layer. And you know what? Let's go ahead and name these two. That's going to help us out a lot later. So shadow. This one we'll name color, and this one we'll name line art. And we'll do this one too, just for kicks. And I'll be sure to put in the resources the finished image in the layers, as well as the finished JPEG version, as well as just starting with the line art and the shape outline, so you can follow along. Okay, so we're on the shadow layer. Still using the same brush. We haven't changed that at all. We're using the same brush this whole time. We've selected this color over here, which is the light blue, and we're going to start painting in the shadow. So imagining the light is coming somewhere from the top left. So I'm going to start painting these shadows in accordingly. So imagining that his jaw here will be casting a shadow down onto his neck. Okay, you can see I'm blending it just a little bit so it's not quite such a hard edge. As well as up here into his neck, I'm going to get the bottom of these folds of skin. Okay, then just a little bit along the bottom of his jaw. And if you need to slow this down or play it back, go ahead. That's totally fine. Little shadow being cast by this fin on his head, as well as a little bit of shadow on the bottom side of the fin there. Throw a little bit of shadow here on the fin itself. Okay. Excellent. Same on this back one up here. Perfect. Let's do inside his mouth. That's mostly all going to be in shadow, except for probably towards the end a little bit. All the way up in here. Fill that in. Oops. And then I'm just going to get my eraser tool so I can clear that up just a little bit in the corner of his mouth there. I want to keep it nice and clean. Bring our brush size down to really fill in those cracks. Awesome. Then his tongue as well. Probably come in shadow about to there. And then just a little bit along the underside of his tongue, because that is a 3D shape, so it will have a shadow. So you can get that underside. Okay. And then over here all the way to the left of his tongue, and then the bottom of the insect or creature that he's eating. Let's move back to his face. So right now I'm on his eyeball. The eye is a sphere, so we want to get the underside of the sphere, as well as under this eyelid here, and then around the top eyelid where it sits back into his skull. Okay, just a little bit on the top of his nostrils and a little bit on the bottom of the stem of his lure. Okay, also going to come up here to his lure and bring that in because it is a round shape. And up here where this line is, I'm going to make my brush size a little bigger. I'm going to put a little bit of a ledge here, like this. And then again down here, it's a little strong. Okay, excellent. Now I'm working his jaw just a little bit more, his upper jaw, bringing in a little bit more of a ledge there. And then I don't think we really need to do much on his ear. I think that looks about fine. All right, so that looks pretty good for his head. Go ahead and move on from that. Next, let's come down here on his neck. So on the back of his neck here, this is going to start to fall into shadow just a little bit. Okay, all these folds and wrinkles that have a little bit of shadow being cast from them. Maybe make our brush size a little smaller as well. Get a little bit more refined. There we go. And then the back of his neck here. All right, excellent. Now, we got that in. Let's go down here to his belly. So about at this point is where it's going to start to fall into shadow on his stomach. I can start working that in. As well as down here underneath his arm. The bottom of his arm is going to be in shadow. Let's make our brush size a little smaller for this. Bottom of his arm, a little bit on his hands, and then the bottom of his fingers as well. On both sides, let's do the other hand, fingers, bottom of the hands, bottom of the arm. Okay, we're going to do these folds of skin where his shoulder is. Okay, casting a little bit of a shadow there. Let's do his leg here. Move on to his leg. That's going to be casting a shadow from his body. And let's blend that out a little more. Okay. And then the bottom of his knee, his back of his leg here. We're going to push all that into shadow. All right, perfect. Bottom of his feet just a little bit. All right, let's move on to his other leg. So we'll start here on the back of his thigh. This is going to be pushed into shadow. Okay, and then especially here on his kneecap. Let's define a little bit of some muscles here. So, like that. Just a little bit of definition there. All right, and then his shin is going to be having a cast shadow here. All right. Then his back of his leg. Excellent. Bottom of his foot, where his foot meets the ground, there's going to be a little bit of shadow there. All right, awesome. It's looking good so far. Then we're going to do the same thing that we did with his shoulder right here. I'm going to throw this fold of skin here into shadow. I want to make it look kind of like there's a crevice there where the skin folds, and then these skin folds on the back of his leg as well. And then just to differentiate the change of surface, we're going to do a little light layer of shadow up here above that fold, so you can pretty clearly see where it is. Okay, do a little bit of shadow here on his back to define that, and then some on this hip bone here, just to really point that out. We're keeping it pretty light on this part. We'll do a little bit on his tail to show that there's some muscle definition in there. Okay, and then the bottom of his tail will be in shadow, so we'll do that as well. Okay, so making sure on the darkest parts we're pushing it all the way down so we get the full opacity for that section. Okay, excellent. So there we go. There's our first pass to shadows. Now what we're going to do, we want to go over any parts that maybe need a little bit more shadow. They need to be a little bit darker, right? So what I'm going to do, come over here, I'm going to select this next layer of shadow, which is this darker blue. Okay, and this is where we're going to go over any parts that need to be just a little bit darker. So for example, under here under his chin, we're going to push it a little bit darker. We're not going to go all the way to the edge because we want it to kind of gradate out a bit. Okay, same with behind his fin. We'll do a little bit darker there. Inside of his mouth, we'll throw another layer of shadow in his mouth. Things in there. Okay, get in that corner. Perfect. Let's see where else we want to do it. His face looks like it's good. We don't need any there. but we could use some maybe down on his belly just a little bit where it really pushes into the darkest part, like this little triangle here of his stomach, a little bit back here by his tail. Could be pushed a little darker under his knee. Get a little bit more shadow, a little bit more definition in his leg as well. Okay, same with his other leg as well. We'll just push that a little bit more into shadow. And that looks good for our shadow layer. That's all we need to do. So next, we're ready to do our light layer. Gonna make a new layer. Set this one to screen. Okay, screen is basically just the opposite of multiply. Once again, we're not going to go super deep into layer details here, but we will cover a whole entire lecture on it later. So next color is going to be this brown color. Now it seems weird that we're using this for highlights, but since it's on the screen layer, it's going to come out a lot brighter. Okay, so we select this brown color here next to the dark blue, and this is going to be our light layer. So I'm going to bring this way down, still using the same brush. I'm going to go over here make that a little bigger, pretty lightly. And we're just going to start bringing out some shadows. Now I'm making my brush, I'm not trying to make it super smooth, because the more I kind of break this up, the more texture it's going to feel like there is on the skin of this creature. And I like that about it, so I'm going to try and keep it not quite super smooth, okay? A little bit on the bottom of his nostrils here, on the edge of the shadow where this crease is, it'll catch a little bit extra light. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that in some more. Okay. Excellent. Under his eye here, catch a little bit more shadow there. All right, and then I'm gonna bring my brush size down real small, get his eyelid up here, the top of this part of the eyelid on the bottom eyelid, be catching some light. Okay, and then over here I'm just gonna put in a little bit of light as well in the corner of his eye where it will be catching just a bit. All right, there we go. It's looking good. I'm gonna go do the top of his lure really quick before I forget, so there's that, okay? Now, we've done pretty much his head. Let's work on these fins. The very top part of the fin will have some, and just a few strokes on there as well to catch some of those ridges and edges. Okay. There we go for his fins. That looks good. I'll do a little bit more on the top of his head over here. Bring my brush size up just a bit. All right. Perfect. Let's do his jaw. So the top part of his jaw will get some, as well as over here, down the front of his jaw. Excellent. Let's do his tongue. So I'm going to bring my brush size down way low. His tongue's going to be pretty wet, so we're going to do some hard edge lighting here. We're blending it a lot less and basically just going along the top edge of the tongue to light it up. Perfect. Let's move on down his body. So now we're on his neck. Right where the shadow edge is, we're going to bring it nice and bright so we can really get that contrast going. All right. So there we go. Lighting that up, giving it a little bit more warmth to it. Okay. Catching the top of these wrinkles here. It's a little bit too small on his neck. Making sure we're getting that texture. Okay, these wrinkles down here on his neck as well. Catch those. All of them, all the way down. Okay. Then we're back to his arm. Okay, so just down the center of his arm, we're going to be catching a little bit of highlights, and then down his forearm as well. On both sides. A little bit on his hands, on top of his fingers on both sides. Okay, catch the fingers again here. Perfect. Let's do some on this wrinkle here, then up there as well. Do a little bit on his back leg, his hind leg, down to his front of his foot, his shin, and then just a little bit on his toes. Okay. Let's move to his other leg. We're going to be getting right down the center of his thigh here. And I'm not filling it all the way in, right? I really want this texture to come through, so I'm keeping it pretty blocky, right? Pretty rough. And then just a little bit on this side, and then right on the other side of that muscle definition as well. We'll get some in there, okay? Perfect. Come down here to his shin on this side, and then his toes as well again on the other foot. All right, perfect. Then we're going to do the wrinkle up here on his hip, okay? And then on his back as well. Okay, let's come over here to his tail. I'm going to bring it down from here, and we're just going to have it fall along that muscle definition and then sort of fade out, and then we'll get a little bit here on top as well. And then on this side, we'll have it be catching a lot of light because it's basically facing directly at it, okay? And then last part, I'm just going to add a little bit on the front of his nose as well. Define it just a little bit more. Awesome. So there's our light layer, first round of highlights. Next, you're going to select the next brightest color, which is this lighter brown next to it, and this is going to be our highlight layer. So once again, we're on our light layer, which let me rename that really quick so we can be clear. We're on the light layer, okay, which is set to screen. Same brush still, just picking a different color now, okay? And we're going to go over the little spots that need just a little bit extra highlight. So probably on his tongue a little bit, we'll find a few spots to pop in those highlights. We don't want everywhere, but just a few spots, okay? I'm going to do a little bit in his mouth there, just a small little piece. Top of his head, we're just going to do a few dots of highlights here that kind of fade out, The reason we're doing these little dots is because it breaks it up and makes it look like there's some texture there. We're not doing it all the way across his head though, just in a few spots where the light's really catching the most. So like at the bottom of his nostrils here, we can do a little bit. Maybe I should do it on one though. His eyelid, that's going to be probably an especially smooth part, and get a little bit extra light there. Do just a little bit here on the back of his head, by his ear. Okay, throwing a little texture in here, just a bit on top of his head as well. Back near the back. Awesome. Do a little bit on his jaw. Perfect. And then as well over here on the top of his fins here, kind of getting this scale texture going in. And then we'll just do the top of the fin on that one. Okay. Awesome. Come down here on his neck, right here where it meets the shadow. We're going to do a little spot of bright light and dot it in there. And then as well as a few points on these folds here where they fold up. Once again, if you need to slow it down, totally go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. Around his shoulder now, just a few little dots here, dotting his arm. Okay, do a little bit on the other side. Excellent. Now, let's go ahead and do his thigh. So once again, we're just doing little dots to kind of let us know there's some texture here. And then we're going to do a little bit on the other side of that muscle definition. We're just doing on that one side. Come down here to his feet. On these folds, we're going to get some here. And then down the tops of his toes just a little bit. Okay. I want to make sure we don't get too bright. We don't want to draw too much attention down there because it's not the focal point. Okay. We'll do just a little bit on his tail. Okay. And then the tip of his tail over here as well. And then just a little bit on his back. Alright. We can also do a little bit on the bug. I don't want to forget bug guy over here. And some on the wings. Okay. So there we go. That's our light and our shadows that we've done. Okay. Next, what we can go ahead and do, we want to add, let's add some markings on him. Okay. So I'm going to make a new layer. We're going to set this one to multiply, and we're going to name this layer markings. Okay. And I'm actually going to drag this one down so that it's beneath my shadow and light layer, but above my color layer. Okay, and we're going to pick this bright pink color. It might seem weird at first, but since it's on multiply, it'll go ahead and even out, and it won't be so weird afterwards. So still using the same brush, we're on our markings layer, right? Make sure you have it in the right spot. You're going to come in here and start painting in some of these markings. I'm just going to go with stripes, okay? And a lot of times, it's better if you give them a little bit of a softer edge. They tend to feel a little bit more real and easier to look at. Okay, so I'm just doing these shadows all along the back of his body. You can see even though the original color is pink, it ends up kind of evening out and looking a lot better once it's actually on him. Okay, so I'm going along his back, filling these all in. You can experiment with this. You can use a different color if you really want to. Right, just depends on how comfortable you are, but you know what, we're just starting out. Following along is totally fine. And by the time you're done with this course, you're going to be painting like a master. You're going to be mind blown. All your friends are going to be mind blown. Your family's going to be mind blown. All the people who told you couldn't do it, you couldn't be an artist, you'll be able to show them your work and be like, you know what, shut up. I am an artist. Look at this. And they'll be super impressed. Alright, so around his neck, just moving right along. You can see because we are doing this below the multiply and the screen layer, the light is just automatically going in there to affect it. We don't have to rework our lighting or anything, so that's really nice and convenient. Could do just a little bit on his head. And I'm also trying to think about kind of the form here. You can notice I'm sort of wrapping it around. It's not just straight. It's kind of following the shape and form of the head here. Okay. Alright. Perfect. And then I'm going to do a little bit on his arms and his legs. Excellent. I'm going to bring my brush size up just a little bit as well for this bigger stripes here. Okay, just going down the side, you can see I'm still keeping it pretty loose. It's not super tight or super crisp or anything, and that's totally okay. Then down his foot. I'm going to make our brush size a little smaller for this one. Alright. Awesome. And then we'll get this thigh as well. We don't want to forget that leg. Alright, perfect. So there we go. We have his markings. He looks pretty awesome. Now we only have one final step. And this step is just a little bit of extra oomph to really make it shine. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to set this layer to overlay. And we're going to rename it warm and cool. And this is referencing the warm and cool effect that we're going to add. Once again, we'll go over all the layers later and what they mean, so don't worry about that now. But we're going to come over here and get this nice, somewhere around here. It doesn't really matter a ton. You just want something generally like this, a kind of golden, brown, yellow color. Okay. And we're going to bring the airbrush in here. This is the first time we're switching brushes, okay? So, and you know, honestly, this layer is not super necessary. This is just if you want to add a little extra effect, which I like to add. So we're going to switch to the soft brush, bring it all the way up, and with this still selected on our warm and cool layer, we're going to brush in from the left, where the light is coming from, this sort of warm light, okay? And I'll go ahead and let's go to our swatch layer really quick. We'll do it afterwards. I'll make sure to put these in the swatches below the pink so you can just color pick the exact colors I used if you want, okay? Then we're going to do a dark blue. So I have this brought over in the blue, and it's somewhere around here, okay? And then from the other side, the opposite direction where it's mostly in shadow, we're going to brush in the blue. So that it will, if you look at the layers, it kind of makes like this gradient from the orange to the blue. And then anywhere also, maybe where there's some heavy shadow, like under his neck, I'll brush it in just a little bit. And then inside of his mouth, because that's all in shadow, we'll fill that in, okay? And that'll be our blue. Now, at first that looks really strong, that's okay. We're going to take care of that. First though, before I do, let's just go ahead and add these colors down here. We'll do it next to the pink. So right there, okay? So there's the blue color. And I'm gonna set this to normal really quick just so I can color pick that original orange, okay? Set that back to overlay, okay? And then there's the orange right there that you need to pick. So that will be on the image, okay? Now this is really strong right now, so what you can do is select the opacity of this layer, which you can either do by tapping 2 fingers on the layer or going to adjustments and hitting opacity. And we're just gonna tone it down a little bit to probably about 40%, maybe 45, so that you can still tell, but it's not overbearing. So when you flip that on and off, you can see it really adds some life to it, okay? So there you go. You just painted this little creature. It should have been pretty easy. We only used one brush the whole time except for this last layer here, and it was only 6 layers worth. So I just want you to be able to take this and realize that anyone can do this. It just takes practice, right? It's a skill just like every other skill out there, like programming or singing or whatever it is. It just takes a lot of practice, but you can do it eventually. So anyways, that's it for this lecture. I'm super pumped and excited to take you through the rest of this course and show you everything that I know, and I hope you get a lot out of it. I'll see you guys in the next lecture. So something I want to talk about before we get too far into this course is how to stay motivated. It's something that I struggled with as a beginner artist, and it's something I get asked a lot of questions about. And it really is a difficult thing to understand and know how to deal with. Motivation can be fleeting. Sometimes we feel really excited and pumped up to work hard and reach our goals, and the next day those same feelings can almost completely disappear, and the inclination to watch TV feels overwhelmingly stronger than the inclination to draw or paint. But there's some things you can do to set yourself up for success and make it so that you do reach your goals and that you do start painting. So first thing is set a clear goal, right? What is it you want to get out of digital painting? Do you want to become a concept artist? Do you want it to be a hobby? Do you want to make your own children's book? Do you want to make your own comic book, right? What is your goal in learning how to digital paint? So first, set that. Then place it somewhere where it's visible, where you'll see it every day. Put it on your bathroom mirror, maybe put it on the background of your phone, wherever it is you need to put it that you'll see it every day. Make sure that it's clear and visible so that you are always constantly being reminded of what that goal is. Secondly, set time aside every day to paint or digital paint, draw, whatever it is that you need to practice. Making a calendar on your phone or even on a piece of paper in a notebook, whatever it is, plan out every day what you're going to do and how long you're going to do it for. And then make sure you have that time set aside where there's no other distractions so that you can get it done. It can be really easy to want to sit down and play a video game or watch TV or get on social media, but having a preset schedule is going to make it a lot easier to resist those temptations and instead work on getting better at painting. The next thing you can do is if you're going to be taking this whole course, which I assume you are, take the course and break it down into sections and figure out how many lectures you're going to watch a day and when you want to have it finished by. That way you can pace yourself and you don't just either binge watch the whole thing or watch a little bit and then never get around to watching the rest of it, right? The next thing you can do to make sure that you can stay motivated and stay pumped is to listen to lots and lots of content, right? Go online, find YouTube channels of artists that you really admire and respect, or Instagram, whatever it is. Surround yourself with content of people that motivate you. Now, it is possible to fall into the pitfall of just browsing Pinterest for hours and hours and never actually painting anything. So you want to make sure you don't do that, but it is good to be inspired and motivated by the artists around you, okay? Lastly, what I recommend is making sure that you have everything set up for success that you're going to need for the next day in order to paint or draw, right? If you're going to be practicing in a sketchbook, then before you go to bed that night, make sure you set your sketchbook out, get all the pencils, all the tools you'll need so that it's ready and waiting for you with your reference photo, everything you're going to need. So when you wake up in the morning, all you have to do is sit down and start drawing. If you're going to be digital painting, then either have your iPad, your tablet, computer, whatever it is, have everything set up, all the reference photos you're going to need already looked up, all the inspiration, so that you are ready to go and you can hit the ground running the next day. One of the biggest things that stops people is this kind of feeling of anxiety of this overwhelming task of having to get everything done or to start a brand new painting or a new assignment or a new project. By breaking it up and having all the prep work done beforehand, it makes it so much easier to jump in and start painting instead of having to first, get your supplies ready, get your reference photo, get your software up, all this stuff that can really actually take some time. You can get that all out of the way the night before and just jump right in. I guess the very, very last thing is going to be you just have to do it, right? And there's all sorts of excuses why we don't want to or why we don't have to, but at the end of the day, it really just comes down to us. How bad do we want it? How much are we going to work to make it happen? And what are we willing to do to achieve our goals, right? So If you want to be a better digital artist, it's going to take practice. It's going to take a lot of hard work. And the hard thing about motivation is that a lot of times we have every reason not to do it, right? Maybe we just got home from work and we're super tired, or we still have so much other stuff to do, or bills to pay, all these other things, right? And there's plenty of excuses for why we shouldn't practice, right? And the thing is, nobody would blame us for them, right? Nobody out there, most people we know would say, yeah, that's fair, that's justifiable. Like, you have every reason to go do that instead of practice tonight because, you had a long day at work or you have other stuff to do. But it doesn't matter what other people are going to think. And it doesn't matter whether or not other people justify our excuses. What matters is how badly we want it. So regardless of whether other people think that you're totally justified in not practicing, or regardless of how much work you have to do or how tired you are, if you really want it, you simply have to make it happen. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps and dig in and work hard. So I hope this is enough to keep you motivated. And, honestly, not the number one thing, but one of the things that motivate me the most, something that I do when I'm feeling unmotivated, I go on YouTube, I look up Shia LaBeouf Just Do It, and I watch it about 10 times in a row. And for me, that works. That makes me feel motivated and think, you know what, Austin, just do it. But figure out what works for you, right? Find some sort of ritual that you can fall back on that can become a habit for you, so that every time you're not feeling motivated, you know exactly what to do to get you in that spot instead of having to kind of mope around and figure out and feel all the stress and anxiety about getting to practicing. So that's it for this lecture. I can't wait to jump in and get started, and I'll see you guys in the next one.